Sorry, this will be the third part, I promise. Or this third part will be the last part, I promise. Anyway, I was saying, if you take a piece of paper and you draw these two objects, well, I think I lost my rotation. Let's re-rotate it. Um, Here's what you'll do, and here's what you'll say. Take this point and look at how far away it is from here. Let's say it's 1 unit, and again, let's say this is like 10 units down. This rotation, look at this point right here. It's 1 unit away from here, and it's 10 units or so away from here. So the take-home message here is, if you take your piece of paper and rotate it, so look at this image here, and then look at this one. If I take a piece of paper that I drew this on and rotate it back down this way, I would be looking at this image again. Okay, so rotating it 90 degrees, counterclockwise in that sense, the paper, you'll be looking at this image again. So that's basically what you're going to end up having. So if this point is -1, -10, this point right here is -10, 1. You'll start kind of figuring out and seeing how it's really supposed to look in the end. It takes a lot of practice. I'm not saying it's easy. It does take a lot of practice, but eventually you will get the hang of it. So let's do a rotation 180 degrees. Let's see what that looks like. Try and visualize what it would look like. First of all, what would the triangle look like? It would be like an upside, or well, not upside down, but it would be rotated. Yeah, I guess it would be rotated upside down. In other words, this part's on the bottom, this part would be on the left, this part would be on the top left, this part would be on the top right. And also, what quadrant would it be in? If this is the third quadrant, it would be up in this quadrant, right? So let's do a 180 degree rotation. Let me start rotating around. So here's about 45. Here's 90. Here's about 135. And here's 180. Okay, so there's a 180 degree rotation. Remember the original image here, and here's a 180 degree rotation here. Okay, so these are these two images, and keep in mind where this point is. It's 1 unit away from here and 10 units away from the origin. Okay? So, and same thing over here. 1 unit away from here, 10 units away from the origin. To double check and make sure your coordinates are right, you should have the same numbers in a way, right? This point is 110, and this point here is, this point here is -1, -10. Right? So you should have the same numbers. They might switch in the x's and y's, because remember this part here is -10, 1. Right there. And they might switch signs. But in the end, you should see those patterns. Remember when I talked about in the objectives, you should recognize patterns. This is another one of those kinds of patterns. You'll see something with coordinate geometry and see something there. Okay, so if I rotate it, here's 180 degrees. Let's do 90 degrees counterclockwise. So if this is my original image here, let's go 90 degrees counterclockwise, and we're looking at a triangle that looks like that. And again, 1 unit away from here, 10 units away from here. So this point is 10, -1. And you're going to have to do the other points as well. It gets a little difficult, and we'll do it more with practice. Okay, so let me go ahead and check off this again and say, okay, we understood this. I'll just check this off and say that we recognize something about patterns, something about them. And finally, practicing, yeah, I guess we practice that as well. So at least we completed our objectives. Let me go over one more kind of problem that you might see. All right, going back to our triangle here, what if we had to do 2 things in one? Heck, let's do all 3. Let's see how much time I have before time runs out. What if we had to do a reflection, a translation, and a rotation? Let's reflect this across the line y equals 1. All right, my axis of symmetry will be right here at y equals 1. So let's flip that first. So let's actually count it off just to, just for good measure. Let's say this is at negative whatever and -3. How about -8.5, -3? So how far away is it from here? It's 1, 2, 3, 4 units away in the y direction. So my mirror image of this point will be 4 units up from here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's where that point will be. Let me go and mark that just as an individual point. Let's do green. So let's mark it about right there. And let's say, okay, that's where our point will be. How about this point? Let's count. So I think this was 10 from here. So let's say that this is 11 right here, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So going straight up, let's do another 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so about right there. I don't know. When we clone it, we'll see where we are. And this was 10 units away as well, so 11. And this is and this is 1 unit away from here. So 11 as well. So let's say it's about like that, right? You would end up connecting these dots and drawing them. I'm just going to go ahead and save time and clone it. Flip it. And technically translate it. Okay? So there are my 3 points. I don't know if that's exact, whatever. So there are my 3 points, right? So that was a reflection across y equals 1. Okay, so now that we got the reflection out of the way, let's take this image, and change the color. Let's take this image now, and now let's translate it. Let's translate it so that every x and y is going to be as follows. X minus 1, y minus 4. Okay, so what that means is, let's clone it again. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to shift everything to the left 1 unit in the x direction. Boom. And I'm going to shift everything down 4 units in the y direction. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah, that's good enough. I'll take that. Okay, so there's my new translation. It's just a shift, nothing more. Let's change that color to green. Okay, so that's my translation. And finally, let's do a rotation. And for good measure, I'm just going to keep it about the origin. We'll do other rotations later. Let's do this about the origin, 180 degrees. Clockwise or counterclockwise, it does not matter. Let me shrink this a little bit so it's not looking so broad. Okay, so we're taking this new image and we got to do that. So for me to make this work, I actually have to draw circles for me to get a good rotation. Actually, you know what? I'm going to avoid doing the circles. Let's go ahead and think of this as a rotation. If I have this point right here, this is, let's call this negative 10, 1. Okay, and I'm going to rotate this 180 degrees. That means the triangle is going to end up looking a different direction, but I'll rotate it here. Here's about 90 degrees. Well, 90 degrees up here. And boom, 180 degrees. Hopefully this is at 10, negative 1. So that's where this point is going to be. It's rotated about here. It's the same distance away from the center. And I could draw a straight line through it, through the origin. I should have mentioned that before. How about this point right here? Let's call it negative 3, 4, 5, 6, what is that, 7, 8? Okay, so let's call it negative 3, 8. So I'm going to have a new point over here that's going to be at 8, negative 3. No, I'm sorry. At 3, negative 8. See, I need practice too. At 3, negative 8. If I draw a straight line through the center and the same distance away, I'm all good. Finally, because I think I'm running out of time, I have this point right here. Let's call it negative 8.5, and let's call it at 8. So this point over here, it's going to be however far away it is from here. Let's say negative 8.5. It's going to be that far away from here. So 8.5 units. So let's go over here, draw that point. Let's say it's about right there. Okay, so let's see how quickly I can do this before time runs out. Let's break it up and make my circles. Shoot, I'm going to run out of time. I know it. Okay, let's draw my circles. So crossing through that point. Yeah, see, I didn't plot these exactly perfect because for the sake of time, but let's group this. And let's see our final image after that. Oh, Jesus. Okay, let's group these. And our final image should be rotated over here, 180 degrees. Boom. So see, my vertices weren't perfect, but you get the general idea. So my final image was right here. My original image was here. We flipped it. Oh, I didn't clone it. That's okay. We flipped it. We translated it down here where these points are here, and then we rotated it. So they might ask you to do 3 things like that, for instance. And so you have a lot of things to do there. So make sure you keep that all in mind when you're working on these things. All right, so I fear I've ran out of time. I hope you understood these objectives well enough, and you can